serving as an alternate for Dan Brady.
Here.
David Marquardt serving as an alternate for Mike Dever.
Here.
Mike Chambers serving as an alternate for Armin Budish.
Here.
Amy Himmeline serving as an alternate for the fiscal officer.
Here.
And Lenora Lockett. Here. We have a quorum.
Okay, very good. I'd like to, at this time, everyone, take a look at the minutes from the previous meeting, from the November 18th Board of Control meeting, and let me know if there's any corrections. Hearing none, I move to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Joe Nani. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the item is approved. Any public comment?
No public comment at this time.
Okay, any tabled items?
We have one tabled item, item number BC 2019-845, Department of Information Technology, submitting an amendment to a contract with RSM US LLP for third-party assurance services for components of the county's enterprise resource planning system. And it's for the period April 17, 2018 through December 31st, 2019, to extend the time period to June 30th, 2020 for organizational readiness assessment effective October 1st, 2019, and for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $50,000.
Good morning, Janelle Green on behalf of the Department of IT. Sorry for my voice. This is to amend the RSM contract. This vendor was selected via RFP for the third-party assurances services directly for the IT department for the ERP. They are continuing on their services for providing organizational readiness. So we would like to add on $50,000 to the contract and to extend it out to June 30th, which would tie into when we should be done with support for the rollout of ERP.
Okay, are there any questions on this item? Councilman Miller.
Why are we using 10/1/2019 as the effective date, a date that's well in the past?
We had that date there as we were creating the item. We could very well start the contract, just since it's an extension of existing statement of work items, we could start that contract effective next Monday or whenever that's approved, okay? So recommend that we adjust the starting date.
We can't do that.
Oh, I'm Jack Ryan, Project Director.
Sorry,
of
Jack.
ERP.
Lenora, real quick.
Lenora Lockett, Office of Procurement and Diversity. Yes, the contract hasn't expired yet. However, the date should reflect when they were authorized to start providing those services.
The start date of the contract was, I believe, March 16th, 2018, if that's the question.
The change in services. When did they start providing the change in services?
Well, they've been providing those types of services, I'm sorry, since the beginning of the contract. So we're not changing the statement of work or the types of services provided. We're only asking for additional funding to complete those services. And the authority for that's under paragraph B5, bullet 17 on page 7, where we ask them to, they have the authority to, and we have the authority to ask them to look at the amount of work expended up to that time or effort expended up to that time. And then if they've expended a significant amount of work, which they did on organizational readiness assessment activities, then to ask for some additional time to allow them to complete the other activities in the contract.
Okay, because I think we heard a little bit different during the briefing meeting, so you're saying
Yes.
that it was just a continuation?
Yeah, we've done,
Okay.
we did the right research to make sure we presented this properly since the last meeting, yes.
So the 10/1 is not an issue? Could be
10/1 is not an issue. We can put that start date. There is existing funding on the contract. We haven't run out. We're not starting late. We're just extending the funding for additional activities.
We're going to have to change the documents then and everything in the system, correct?
Yes.
Joe, please.
To that point, just to be clear, when you're saying change the documents, I was looking over some of the documents, and I do believe that there was an additional scope item that was added to the revised.
No, that was in a previous draft. We had erroneously done that. The current draft of that document does not have any additional scope.
There's no change in scope.
So we submitted corrected document for all of that, so that should be uploaded into Base.
Okay.
And also, this additional $50,000 funding was previously presented in our reports for the fiscal or the finance committee. So this is something in line with what we presented earlier.
Okay, are there any other questions? Yes, Councilman Baker?
So are we given assurances that this 50,000 will take us to the finish line? That you will not be coming back for an additional amount of money for the same purpose?
We don't anticipate any additional amount of money at this time for these services.
Are you confident in that statement?
I'm confident in the statement. The reason that we extended for 50,000 was because, as briefed to council, going back several council meetings back, we identified change management and readiness assessment as a key issue that we had some gaps in. And they've allowed us to, in that effort so far, they've allowed us to help fill those gaps. So I think that effort to do that is expended. I don't expect to have to expand it further because they provided what we needed to close our gap, which we're doing well on.
All right, thank you.
Okay, then I'll make a motion, I guess, to amend the item as noted with the dates. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, seconded by Councilman Miller. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed? Okay, we got the amended. So now I'll ask if there's any other questions on the item itself. Hearing none, I'll ask for an approval. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Marquardt. All those in favor say aye. Okay, the item's approved as amended.
Next item, moving on to new items. Next item, BC 2019-859, Department of Public Works, recommending payments to various property owners in the total amount not to exceed $10,500 for the construction of lateral sewer connections and decommissioning of household sewage treatment systems for the Bagley and Cook Road Sanitary Sewer Connections Project for the various property owners as listed, items number A through G on the printed agenda.
Dave Marquardt from the Department of Public Works. In regards to this item, the county received an MCIP grant from Northeast Regional, which was effective from January 1st of 2019 through December 31st of 2020. The purpose of the grant was to encourage residents to connect to the new sewers that we construct on Bagley Road and Columbia and Cook Road by reimbursing them a portion of their sewer connection costs up to a maximum amount of about $1,500. Before the effective date of the grant, 7 residents had already connected and paid a contractor to connect. We wanted to treat these 7 residents the same as the rest of the people who are eligible for the grant reimbursement within the project, the same. So this item is requesting council to authorize the use of sewer funds to reimburse the 7 residents who connected early.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions on this item? Hearing none, I move to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Joe. All those in favor, say aye. Opposed? The item's approved. Next item.
Next item, BC 2019-860, Department of Development, recommending a payment on requisition 46844 to the City of Euclid in the amount not to exceed $820,000 to pay final invoices for services rendered in connection with agreement number AG 17035 for demolition of vacant, abandoned, nuisance, or blighted structures for Round 6 of the Cuyahoga County Property Demolition Program, and it's for the period June 1st, 2017 through November 30th, 2018.
Jackson with the Department of Development. We are asking for authorization to be able to put back, if you will, the $820,000 that was decertified for the City of Euclid for their demolition contract, so that we may pay the invoices that they incurred during the period 6/1/2017 to 11/30/2018. We had a couple contracts in our office that inadvertently got decertified because there was a failure to check to see if there were invoices outstanding. So we are cleaning that up with this request and the request to follow.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions on this item? Councilman Baker?
Just concerning that it took a year for us to realize that these funds weren't accounted for. Is that concerning for you too
Not anymore, Councilwoman.
anymore? Okay.
If you look at the next three items, we went through, staff and I, an extensive review of the program from its inception to now, and this is the cleanup of those things to make sure that whatever errors and omissions we might have missed, we are correcting those with these actions.
And you have processes in place from here on forward?
Yes.
To take care of anything future?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, any further questions? Hearing none, I move to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Joe. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? The item's approved. Next item.
Next item, BC 2019-861, Department of Development, recommending a payment on requisition 46944 to the City of Shaker Heights in the amount not to exceed $118,600 to pay final invoices for services rendered from July 8th, 2016 through July 31st, 2017, in connection with agreement number AG 16040 for demolition of vacant, abandoned, nuisance, or blighted structures for Round 3 of the Cuyahoga County Property Demolition Program, and it's for the period February 1st, 2016 through July 31st, 2017.
Sarah Parks Jackson with the Department of Development. The original contract amount for this demolition with the City of Shaker Heights was $420,000. Their balance of $118,600 was again decertified, and we are asking to put that back to allow us to pay them their final invoices, which actually total the $118,600, which will zero out that agreement for demolition for the City of Shaker Heights.
Okay, any questions on this item? Councilwoman Baker?
So this one goes back to July of 2017. Did they bring this to your attention? Did they miss not being paid, or is this something you found as you were going through your records?
Actually, I brought it to their attention and made a call and said, basically what we did with all the cities where there seemed to be a high balance. Are you aware? Did you have invoices? Do we need to make this right so that we could pay the cities for what they expended, and worked with Shaker Heights to make sure that everything was correct, everything was in the time frame as set, so that we could reimburse them accordingly.
So they were, I'm sure, pleased that you brought this to their attention and they didn't have to expend another $118,000. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thanks for making sure this doesn't happen again.
Okay. Any other questions? Hearing none, I move to approve. Do I have a second? Seconded by Councilwoman Baker. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? The item's approved. Thank you. Next item.
Next item, BC 2019-862, Department of Development, recommending an award to the Village of Cuyahoga Heights in the amount not to exceed $360,000 for demolition of vacant, abandoned, nuisance, or blighted structures in connection with Round 7 and Round 8 of the Cuyahoga County Property Demolition Program, and it's for the period May 1st, 2018 through December 31st, 2020.
Sarah Parks Jackson with the Department of Development. The Village of Cuyahoga Heights had been awarded in Round 7 and Round 8 via letters of award that they would have contracts prepared for $100,000 and $260,000 respectively for those rounds. Unfortunately, they thought we had executed contracts. We did not. So to correct that, we now are presenting with you an approval so that they will have executed contracts. However, they did expend some of the funds thinking that they had a contract in place, which is why the date is 5/1/2018.
Okay, are there any questions? Councilwoman Baker, please.
So again, is this something on our end that we could manage differently, and so that we don't have to go back to 5/1 to capture what was due?
In the future, we We actually now have a database with a chart of every single contract that has been issued for the demolition program. This contract will be the last on that list.
Okay.
So we've got expiration dates. We're keeping track of how much money was expended, whether we decertified the funds. So we have an extensive list now of what has occurred and what is yet to occur.
That's good. That's good to hear. The one prior on 860 was round 6, and this is round 7 and 8. Is that in sequence? Is that round 6 before this one that ended in November 2018?
Yes.
Okay. And this will then be the last, as you said, that is remaining before you start the new system.
Right. We did, you've already approved, the last round we had was round 9.
Okay,
And that was the last round of new
okay,
agreements that we asked this body to approve. So this is more cleaning up of those things where we found discrepancies.
thank you.
Any further questions? Hearing none, I move to approve. Do I have a second? Seconded by Councilman Miller. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Okay, the item's approved. Next item.
Thank you.
Thanks, Eric.
B 2019-863, Department of Development, submitting an amendment to a contract with Kimura Economics and Analytics LLC for economic data and analysis subscription services. And it's for the period October 23rd, 2017 through November 14th, 2019, to extend the time period to November 14th, 2020, and for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $11,139.45.
Good morning, Paul Herdig, Department of Development. This is an extension of our subscription to an online service we use. Both we and the Office of Innovation use it for economic data. Among other things, we use it to figure the return on investment. We're looking at potential loans we're going to make. So we've been very pleased with the service. We used it for 2 years, and we're extending for an additional year.
Okay, thanks, Paul. Any questions? Hearing none, I move to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Nani. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? The item is approved. Next item.
Thank you.
Next item, item BC 2019-864, Department of Information Technology, submitting an amendment to a contract with Microsoft Corporation for Microsoft Premier Training and Support Services. And it's for the period November 1st, 2017 through December 5th, 2019, to extend the time period to December 5th, 2020, and for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $286,101.76.
Good morning, board members. Dennis Sullivan, Department of IT. This is a one-year amendment, Microsoft support countywide.
Are there any questions? Councilwoman Baker.
Is this part of the ERP now? Is that a different type of training, or is it the same as what you've had in past?
This has nothing to do with the ERP. This is
Nothing
just
to do with-
support of the Microsoft products and licensing.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? No? All those, okay, I'll move to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Nani. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? The item is approved. Thank you.
Next item, BC 2019-865, Department of Information Technology, submitting an amendment to a contract with Sterling Data Center LLC, doing business as Blue Ridge Networks, for lease of space located at 1255 Euclid Avenue in Cleveland to house and maintain county-owned fiber and 5 server racks. And is for the period November 1st, 2013 through December 31st, 2019, to extend the time period to December 31st, 2021, and for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $273,993.60.
Morning again, Dennis Sullivan, Department of IT. This is for the hosting of the server farm and the connectivity that's still over at 1255 Euclid.
Okay, Joe, please, go ahead.
Dennis, did you receive questions ahead of time?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I got it. They were late Friday, and I just took a look at them. There's 2 funding sources. It's between IT's admin and Common Pleas judicial admin. And the total is, including this amendment, the total will be $1,428,474. And the lease dates back to November of 13.
Do you have a split? I think that was another question. There was, what's the split, the percentage? Yeah, is it 50-50 or?
No, the common pleas judicial is $1,800 of this amendment.
1,800?
1,800.
Okay. Are there any further questions? Councilwoman Baker, please.
The funding source is general fund. Is that general fund IT administration? And
Correct, that's all one thing. That's not separate sources. There shouldn't be a comma there.
thank you.
Any further questions? Hearing none, I move to approve. Do I have a second? Seconded by Mr. Nani. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? The item is approved. Next item.
Next item, BC 2019-866, Department of Information Technology, on behalf of the Department of Health and Human Services, Division of Children and Family Services, submitting an amendment to a contract with 5 Points Technology Group for placement, tracking, and matching system services for the period November 18, 2015 through November 18, 2019, to extend the time period to November 18, 2020, and for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $87,150.
Janelle Green, Department of IT. This contract amendment with 5 Points Technology Group is to extend the maintenance for the Care Match system that is used by DCFS for 1 year. The system is used by the used by the agency to manage their foster care placement. It automates the request to place kids in foster care service providers, and the system tries to match the characteristics of the child with the appropriate foster home to ensure the best possible placement.
Are there any questions on this item? Lenora, please.
I'm sorry. With discussion with Lenora, the vendor does need to re-register with the Inspector General's office, so we ask that you approve this pending their re-registration.
Okay, I move to approve pending registration. Do I have a second? Seconded by Councilman Miller. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? The item's approved as noted. Thank you.
The next item is a two-part item, item number BC 2019-867, Department of Information Technology. A, submitting an RFP exemption on requisition 47326, which will result in an award recommendation to Integrated Precision Systems, Inc. in the amount not to exceed $62,853.30 for the purchase and installation of 26 surveillance cameras, 1 server for video archiving and maintenance and installation services in the Correction Center and the path to the inmate elevators in the Justice Center Court Tower. And B, recommending the award in connection with said RFP exemption.
Good morning, David DeGrandis from the Department of IT. A capital project was established and funded by the General Fund in response to the report from the American Corrections Association and other audits and analyses that were done in the jail. As part of this process, you'll see a number of items coming through in the next few weeks. This one is for cameras that in the bullpen area on the 5th floor of Jail 1, that's where inmates are housed pending their court dates. And we're replacing all the analog non-recording cameras in that area and the path that extends to the court towers and to the elevators.
Are there any questions on this item? No. Seeing none, I move to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Nani. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? The item's approved. Next item.
The next item is a two-part item, item number BC 2019-868, Department of Information Technology. A, submitting an RFP exemption on requisition 47266, which will result in an award recommendation to Woolpert, Inc. in the amount not to exceed $52,854 for flyover and aerial light detection and ranging data collection services in connection with the Ohio Statewide Imagery Program. And it's for the period November 25th, 2019 through November 24th, 2020. And B, recommending the award in connection with said RFP exemption.
Morning again, Dennis Sullivan, Department of IT. This contract, if approved, will start today upon approval. It's for a year. They need a year's time to match up weather, the leafless season, everything else to take these light detection and ranging laser photos from a flyover countywide. I have a bit I can read to you from one of the users. It says LiDAR, the light detection and ranging will provide high quality precise data and will aid in mapping features within the county. LiDAR consists of laser, scanner, and GPS receiver, and the resulting data is an extremely precise 3D model of the subject area, which is Cuyahoga County. That allows very specific data classifications, for instance, road surface types, catch basins, elevations, etc. Michael, if you recall, we talked Wednesday, it's going to tell you manhole covers exactly where they're at.
I think it's going to give us a lot of data for use in the future. So right now we use it in a township and going forward. But are there any questions? Councilman Baker.
Don't we have aerial views for other purposes?
That's a separate, I believe you're talking about what they do for real property for Manatron and that's separate. This last time this was done was about 10 years ago.
Okay, so it's a new service, new
This
trial.
is more with the GIS function and the mapping and the detail as opposed to topography that's done for property lines and that for Manatron.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Marquardt, do you want to add anything? Or?
This is actually to provide a much improved vertical accuracy on the data that's presented. So it's down to a 2-inch vertical accuracy. So we have quite a lot of things that can be used for.
Okay, thank you. Are there any further questions? Seeing none, I move to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Miller. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The item's approved. Next
Thank
item.
you.
Thanks.
Is item BC 2019-869, Department of Information Technology, recommending an award on requisition 47049 and enter into a contract with Wowza Media Systems LLC in the amount not to exceed $10,000 for streaming media content delivery network cloud-based platform services, and it's for the period November 25th, 2019 through November 24th, 2020.
Good morning, Jonathan Schick, Multimedia Department of Information Technology. Yeah, this is a cloud-based content delivery network for all of our streaming rooms, this room and the council room and committee room A. Basically, this will provide our end users more functionality in the streams. They'll be able to use them on their mobile devices. I have a friend here who's saying hello. It's the next step in our streaming evolution. We've been streaming these meetings since the inception of council, and this is just the next step in how we deliver this content to our end users and residents. Any questions?
Any questions? Okay, hearing none, I move to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Miller. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? The item's approved. Next item.
Next item, BC 2019-870, Department of Workforce Development, submitting an amendment to a contract with Growth Transitions, Inc., doing business as Mayor and Mayor for Workforce Innovation and Opportunities Act Consultant Services. And it's for the period February 1st, 2019 through December 31st, 2019, to extend the time period to December 31st, 2020, and for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $81,226.
Good morning, Frank Brickner from the Department of Workforce Development. We're looking to extend Mayor by $81,226,000 through 12/31/20. We did select Mayor via competitive RFP process. In 2019, they focused on getting a strategic plan for our Workforce Development Board and engaged in conversations with the library system and Health and Human Services, how we can work better together there. We've been very pleased with them. What we're hopeful to get in 2020 is that they will be reviewing really our service delivery model, how we serve adults and young adults in our system. Is it workforce friendly, and to get their opinions. They can also, other scoped activities include board development activities and staff and contractor provided training.
Okay, are there any questions on this item? Seeing none, I move to approve. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilman Miller. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? The item is approved. Next item.
Thank you.
Thanks, Frank.
Next item is a two-part item. Item number BC 2019-871, Department of Workforce Development. A, submitting an RFP exemption on requisition 47271, which will result in an award recommendation to University Hospitals Health System, Inc., doing business as University Hospitals, in the amount not to exceed $50,000 for implementation of an on-the-job incumbent worker training program for patient care nurse assistants. And it's for the period December 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2020, and B, recommending the award in connection with said RFP exemption.
Frank Brickner, Workforce Development. We're looking for an approval of a program where we're going to be training existing workers, typically in food service and environmental, and we will be providing the training for them to become patient care nurse assistants. This is an allowable service from the Federal Workforce Investment Opportunity Act. It does require match be put in by the employer, and University Hospital will be putting in more than, I think, almost $100,000. This will allow for the training of staff for 6 to 8 weeks as they get certified to become patient care nurse assistants. University hospitals came to us saying, we have a shortfall in nurse assistants personnel. This is a way we can help address that.
Okay, are there any questions on that item? Councilwoman Baker.
Just for clarity, this is the same federal funding as the one above it, right?
Yes.
Thank you.
Joe.
Just a question, you had said food service and patient care, or were those both the same thing?
Well, they're going to take existing food service workers and like janitorial staff and convert them. And I did want to say that this is performance-based payments too. So, you know, our skin in the game comes in if they're successful, that they recruit the people, and then the individuals are successful with the training.
Okay, any further questions? Seeing none, I move to approve. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilman Miller. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? The item's approved. Next
Thank
item.
you.
Next item, BC 2019-872, Department of Human Resources, recommending an award on requisition 44253 and enter into a contract with Medical Resource Group, Inc., in the amount not to exceed $185,000 for independent medical examinations and/or independent psychiatric or psychological evaluations. And it's for the period January 1st, 2020 through December 31st, 2022.
Good morning, Pat Smock on behalf of the Department of Human Resources. This contract's for independent medical exam. It serves an ongoing need for our workers' comp group. The exams ensure that claims are accurate, and they help determine whether or not an injured employee is capable of performing the essential functions of their position. It's a service the county's used for many years. Invoices in the past have been paid either by voucher or more recently by purchase order. The contract will streamline the process from the scheduling through the payment, and we appreciate your consideration of this request.
Okay, I know there were some questions. Councilwoman Baker?
So I wasn't familiar with this program. Is this done at the time of hire?
No, Councilman, this is based on employees who file for workers' compensation claims, so they had an accident on the job.
So at the time?
Correct. And we do an appointment. Normally it's scheduled within 10 days of the injury that occurs on the job. And it gives an independent view of that injury and ensures that perhaps an employee doesn't mistakenly report a pre-existing condition or something along those lines.
Oh, okay. That's the way that works. Thanks.
Any further questions? Councilman Miller.
In addition to streamlining, will the new process save us any money?
Thank you, Councilman. In reality, no. This is the same company that we used for many years. There is not an increase, however, in the fees that are required to be paid. But other than our administrative costs, I guess, on the department's end, I don't see it saving us any money in cost to the vendor.
Okay, well, I'm still willing to vote for it.
Please.
I think you could argue that it's a cost avoidance when you have this type of service to be able to have that resource for HR, correct?
Oh, absolutely. It's an important contract for us. It pays for itself and beyond, most definitely in our workers' compensation payments.
Sure.
I know I mentioned about the wellness program that we offer, which probably also makes sure they go through a screening program, that there aren't any. Do any of those, is any of that information shared with this independent group, or is that a factor in determining whether there was a pre-existing condition, anything like that?
Thank you for the question, Councilman. They're really not. The wellness program, our employees are assured that anything they share with the wellness vendor is kept separate and distinct through HIPAA. However, part of this contract is that in a routine medical exam, the physicians or psychiatrists, psychologists, what have you, will screen up to 150 pages of medical documents, medical records. So they do investigate the employee's medical background or history, but not based on what's in the wellness platform. That's completely separate and always kept separate. Thank you.
Any further questions? Seeing none, I move to approve. Do I have a second? Seconded by Mr. Nani. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? The item's approved. Next item.
The next item is a two-part item, item number BC 2019-873, Department of Public Safety and Justice Services. A, submitting an RFP exemption on requisition 46802, which will result in a contract with Mental Health Services for Homeless, Inc., doing business as Frontline Service in the amount not to exceed $308,960.26 for Defending Childhood Central Intake and Assessment Services in connection with the fiscal year 2020 Victims of Crime Act grant, and is for the period October 1st, 2019 through September 30th, 2020. And B, recommending the award in connection with said RFP exemption.
Good morning, Mary Beth Vaughn from Public Safety. And as Andrea has already mentioned, this contract is for the intake and assessment as part of our Defending Childhood initiative. The exemption is being requested on the basis of the fact that this Frontline was named as a partner in this initiative in our grant application to the state, and the state has already approved them to be a subrecipient. We do need the contract to go back to October 1st. As with the other VOCA items that we've brought to you, this is a situation where the state did not notify us of our award until the middle of October, and at that point, we were able to then finalize the amounts in the contract and get them sent to the vendor and get processed.
Okay, are there any questions on this item? Seeing none, I move to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Nani. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? The item's approved. Next
Thank you.
item. Thanks.
Item BC 2019-874, Department of Health and Human Services, Community Initiatives Division, Office of Homeless Services, submitting an amendment to a contract with Emerald Development and Economic Network, Inc. for facility management services for the Norma Herr Women's Shelter, and is located at 2227 Payne Avenue in Cleveland, and it's for the period January 1st, 2019 through December 31st, 2019, to extend the time period to December 31st, 2020, and for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $496,595.
Good morning, Shari Weir, Office of Homeless Services. We are requesting approval of this amendment to the existing contract to extend the term of the contract for 1 year. Eden owns the building where the women's shelter is located, and as the owner, it is responsible for ensuring that the facility is maintained and the health and safety standards are met. Roughly 180 women use the building per day, and so the cleaning and maintenance and utility costs are high. This contract was awarded an RFP exemption a year ago in January, and then was amended to add additional funds in March. And this extension for a year would be the same amount as what was approved for the current contract.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions? Councilwoman Baker.
So for $500,000, is this, I'm only reading here, for facility management services, is there anything in the facility that is going to take a large part of these dollars, or is this just routine maintenance of cleaning and, well, is there, it seems like a $500,000 for just routine maintenance seems high.
It also includes utilities, water, sewer, electric, and so forth. The building does, it is used heavily, so just sort of routine maintenance is a factor as well.
So no extensive remodeling No changing of walls, no new carpeting, anything that?
New carpeting could be. I mean, that could be part of an expense. Eden also, as part of this, is responsible for getting any replacement bedding and mats and so forth that will be needed.
Was $500,000 spent in the prior year?
Yeah, it will be spent. The year ends at the end of this year. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions? Seeing none, I move to approve. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Nani. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? The item is approved. Next item.
Item BC 2019-875, Department of Health and Human Services, Office of Reentry, submitting an amendment to a contract with YMCA of Greater Cleveland for transitional housing and case management services for male and female ex-offenders for the Open Door Housing Program. And it's for the period January 1st, 2018 through December 31st, 2019, to extend the time period to December 31st, 2020, and for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $201,016.
Good morning, Fred Bollett with the Office of Reentry. This is a one-year amendment in which we expect this to be the last amendment for this contract, as we are weaning the vendor off county funding, and they are pursuing other funding. And one of the things you'll notice is that the amendment is for approximately $99,000 less than it has been for the other years of the programming, and that's reflective of the fact that they now have other funding sources for that. The services are not going to be cut in any way. It's the same level of service, but less funding from the county.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Seeing none, I move to approve. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilman Miller. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? The item is approved. Thank you. Next item.
BC 2019-876, Court of Common Pleas Corrections Planning Board, recommending an award on requisition 46990 and enter into an agreement with the Alcohol, Drug Addiction, and Mental Health Services Board of Cuyahoga County in the amount not to exceed $231,000 for intensive outpatient drug and alcohol treatment services for the Jail Reduction/Diversion Grant Program. And it's for the period July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2021.
Good morning, Marty Murphy for the Corrections Planning Board. This first item is our 408 pre-adjudicated funding for jail reduction. It targets people that are adjudicated to the jail for short periods, generally from municipalities. Oftentimes these clients are there because of drug issues. They're identified and then plugged into community-based services, taken out of the jail to reduce bed days.
Okay, thank you, Marty. Are there any questions? Councilwoman Baker.
So I'm reading your explanation as to why these are over 4 months late, and it looks like circumstances certainly delayed it. By the time let's see what you're saying here. By the time the Corrections Planning Board discovered that this had lapsed, why did it take so long for them to bring it to us? September 11th is when the funding became available, but they didn't hear it until the 24th, and we're in November now.
Sure.
So why did that time? Why couldn't we have really tried to get this done closer to the date?
Each of these, this one and the next two, are all related to the state funding cycle. We've had a number of items like this over the last several months. They are dependent upon when we get the dollars from the state, and then ultimately when those dollars become accepted by the council and then made available through the budget process into our individual index codes. When we're working with outside entities, be it the Alcohol, Drug, Mental Health Services Board, Cleveland Municipal Court, Case Western, anyone else where we're working with external entities, generally they have their own processes also that they have to go through. We put these in as quickly as possible. We've known that they were coming since truly probably May, but because of the timing on dollars and the flow with everybody that has to see the issues and approve them, this is about the earliest that they get here.
Okay, I guess I'm just noting your timeline here, and I certainly understand the July 15th delay, but that was July.
Sure.
All right, so this had gone through a process in August that showed that there were a few glitches there. Then there was also some lapses in time based on the review of documentations with OnBase. It just seemed like when it became our control, we still were in delay.
The absolute earliest, barring anything with OnBase or working with an external board that has their own schedules and timelines, the funding was in place in our accounts, I want to say on September 4th.
Okay.
But then you still have to go through the contractual process and the approval process with the external entities. And then you also have, if it gets kicked back in OnBase.
Right. I guess it would be helpful because we have the internal auditor flagging when we're late on these contracts, and we have the Inspector General now looking into all late contracts, that if we can maybe let us know when we're voting on this, why it is that it's late without asking, it would make it easier, and maybe put it on report and record so that when they investigate, they can note that it was out of our control.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, any further questions? It seems like this comes up with a lot of our grants, and it's unfortunately maybe the nature of the business, and but I think I agree with you. So, okay, all those in favor? Or do I approve the item? Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Nani. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the item's approved. Thank you.
Next item, BC 2019-877, Court of Common Pleas Corrections Planning Board, recommending an award on requisition 46993 and enter into an agreement with the Alcohol, Drug Addiction, and Mental Health Services Board of Cuyahoga County in the amount not to exceed $172,000 for mental health treatment and clinical services for the mental health program. And it's for the period July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2021.
Marty Murphy again for the Corrections Planning Board. One minor change on this one and the next one. The actual funding source is Ohio Community Corrections Act 407 grant on each of the next two, not 408. This particular item is our funding to work with the mental health dockets, the mental health courts, as well as the MHDD units within the probation department. And with this particular item, what the vendor ultimately does is they provide the clinical case management in concert with the probation department to keep these clients in the community.
Okay, do we have any, Councilman? No.
Has, given that this was 7/1 and we're now November, has any money been expended during that time? Are there people that have been able to get the services without having this contract approved?
On each of these items, services obviously have gone on. We have kept people out of the jail. We've done what we could to keep mental health people stable in the community. The funding itself has not been expended and won't be until after this is finished, this process.
So you had enough in the fund to be able to pay?
Actually, no, there's several vendors that are interested in getting paid.
Okay, any further questions? Seeing none, I move to approve. Do I have a second? Second. Seconded by Mr. Nani. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The item is approved. Next item.
Next item, BC.
Oh. As a, sure.
It's about this comment you said about several other vendors being interested in being paid. Could you elaborate on that?
Sure. When we don't go through this process and there's funding not in place for us to pay accounts receivable, we never say no to getting mental health services or substance services or getting somebody out of the jail earlier. The vendors that work with the court and the Corrections Planning Board generally take it on good faith that at some point the process will catch up and that they will be reimbursed for the services that they have rendered.
So, how much money is outstanding in such services that have been rendered, but we haven't paid them yet?
Well, it is mid-November, so I would say somewhere around 5/24 of a 2-year budget.
5/24 of a two.
24th.
And
It's
how much is-
almost 5 months' worth of services.
And how much is a 2-year budget?
Well, if you look at in aggregate for our 407 and 408, those two grants alone come out to in the neighborhood of $10 million. If you were to say that that amount, you'd be talking quite a bit of dollars. I could get it back to you exactly. And again, I've said to this body and to Executive Budish before that the solution to this is it's always going to be an issue, and a potential solution would be to have a general fund dollar amount within the Corrections Planning Board budget, and then do the contracts off the general fund, and then do expense adjustments once the actual grants come in, and reimburse the general fund. At that point, nothing would be late. It would just be timing issues and when the money hits.
So we're basically waiting for more grant money to come in order to pay these things that we owe. Is that correct?
We have our guarantees, assurances, and our agreement with the state already, and that was passed. And those fundings were made available in September. So the funding is actually there. It's actually a timing issue in terms of when the contracts will start and when we're actually able to have them executed for payment.
But there's more outstanding that we don't have the money yet so that we can pay them. That's what you just said? Am I right?
We have the funding we need, the authority to go forward with the payment. We have the agreement from the state where we know we're going to get the $10 million. Yes.
So who gives that authority?
From the state?
Yeah.
The state provides us with a grant award. We then bring that into this body. This body then accepts that award. Once it's accepted, we then go to OBM, and we set up requesting funding to be put into individual index codes based upon how the money is going to be divvied up, be it for personnel, contracts, what have you. And then we go forward with our external partners, be they Case Western or the Adams Board or the Board of Developmental Disabilities, and execute the contracts with them. So it's a multi-step process.
So the summary of it is that we have $10 million that we know we got coming, and when that money comes in, then we can pay these vendors that are approximately 5/24 of a 2-year contract, and we can then pay them. Is that
It's
correct?
actually better than that. Once these items are approved, we can cut the recs to pay them tomorrow.
I thought you said that in addition to these, that we have other ones waiting to be paid.
We do, but and again, each one individually, if you get a 407 grant, there are probably in the 407 bucket, maybe 9 or 10 different contracts, perhaps 100 different staff people incorporated in that. Within the 408, there are again several individual contracts for different services. So each 407 and 408 boil out to about 10 different sub-grants and 10 different contracts.
So we're still waiting for some of this grant money to come in so that we can cover those additional vendors that you said are still waiting to be paid. Is that correct?
No. We're waiting for the Board of Control to pass the items so that we can actually pay them.
We've been going around and around here for 10 minutes now.
Yes, sir.
What you said just before we approved the item is that in addition to the things that we're trying to take care of with these two items here, you said that there are additional vendors waiting to be paid. Now I hear you saying the opposite, that there are not additional vendors waiting to be paid, that when we pass these two items, we can take care of everybody. So which is it?
When we pass these two items, we can take care of these two contracts with this particular vendor. Once we finish these three items, there are, I believe, two more contracts, one with the city of Cleveland, which is being held by them, and then another which is in process with the Board of Developmental Disabilities, that we've gone through the exact same process, where we owe them arrearages. We have the money. It's a matter of having the signed documents in on-base approved by this particular board, and then we can cut checks for them.
So, right now, there aren't any vendors out there that we owe them money and we do not have the money in hand to pay them. We're just waiting to go through our own processes. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Okay, and Councilwoman Baker.
Is understanding that we're trying to get this money, once we know it has been approved and by the grant through the state process, why is it that the Corrections Planning Board only has one fiscal meeting? Or is this just a slow month in August that they only had one fiscal meeting? Why is it that we can't, understanding we have this money in the wings and we want to pay our vendors, and now it's in the control of the Corrections Planning Board, why is it that they don't act quicker?
It actually isn't. It's actually in control of the council, and there was, this money, I think, became available to put onto an agenda in mid-July, somewhere around the 17th. Council took a break from having a fiscal agenda item on the council's agenda, with the exception of one unannounced one, the very, very first week in August. The next available council agenda where we could have a fiscal item on was into September. So we lost, that was not a Corrections Planning Board item, that was entirely a council item for those 5 or 6 weeks.
Okay, in your explanation, you have fiscal agenda, August 6th, Correction Planning Board could have placed the appropriation item on. That's why I asked.
If we had known that there was going to be that August 6th agenda item for council, yeah, it was not announced. It wasn't actually on the agenda. They did have a small agenda item though.
Okay. Thank you. So this is just this could have been, in any other circumstance, we probably would have gotten this sooner. Maybe not. I don't know. Okay.
I would say that unless there is a general fund pool to do these contracts with, we'll be going through the exact same process in 2 years, Councilwoman.
Okay, any further questions? Hearing none, I move to. Oh, you did. I'm sorry. You got me all thrown off. Okay, next item then.
Next item is BC 2019-878, Court of Common Pleas, Corrections Planning Board, recommending an award on requisition 46998 and enter into an agreement with Alcohol, Drug Addiction, and Mental Health Services Board of Cuyahoga County in the amount not to exceed $160,000 for a residential level of care services for dually diagnosed men, and it's for the period July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2021.
Good morning, Marty Murphy again from the Corrections Planning Board. We are recommending this agreement in the amount of $160,000, and this is for co-occurring males that need residential services. The amount of this contract is $160,000, and it is almost 5 months late for all the previously stated reasons.
Okay, we have a move to approval. Do I have a second? Or was that my
Is
second?
this grant the same?
7 money. It's state CCA 407.
So it says on the item, it's 408.
Right. The first one is 408. And that's basically, it differentiates in the state law if it's pre-adjudicated offenders or post-adjudicated. The other two, they are post-conviction.
407, okay.
Okay, we have a move. I second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the item's approved. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next item.
The next item is a two-part item, item number BC 2019-879, Sheriff's Department, A, submitting an RFP exemption on requisition 46907, which will result in an award recommendation to Benjamin Foods in the amount not to exceed $3,783.50 for the purchase of cookies for the period July through September, and B, recommending the award in connection with said RFP exemption.
Good afternoon, Tanisha Giggs with the Sheriff's Department. Requesting approval to pay Benjamin Foods an overage of $3,000 or $3,783.50 for the third quarter cookie order. Normally, every quarter we order 250,000 cookies. For the third quarter, the vendor came in with a case size larger than what we were used to. Normally it's 500 a case. They bid 900 a case and won. So the ordering officer was unaware of the change in cases, and he has a standing or routine order that he normally places with the vendors, and accidentally ordered more cookies than was approved and needed. The cookies have been used. We were over roughly 160,000 cookies for the third quarter, which means we have not needed as many cookies for the fourth quarter. So we do anticipate deserting funds for the current purchase order for cookies.
Okay. Any questions?
Yeah.
Councilwoman Baker.
Putting aside the cookies and all, there probably was an important lesson here learned.
Absolutely.
For
And
future orders of any kind of POs that
Absolutely.
are not approved.
yes, they will, going forward, use the tracker that is in place in the ordering department in the jail, as well as we've reached out to vendors to let them know that we do not want them to overship on any purchase orders.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Miller.
Did we have any behavioral problems at the jail because of overconsumption of cookies?
I think lack of cookies may cause that, but it's been fine.
Okay, good.
Okay, hearing no further questions, I move to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Miller. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed, item is approved. Next item.
I would just like to go back to item number BC 2019-878. I did not hear who seconded the motion.
I did, I guess. Mr. Councilman Miller
That's what happened.
approved it. Yep.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
Moving on to item number BC 2019-880, Office of the Medical Examiner, recommending a sole source award on requisition 47224 to Life Technologies Corporation in the amount not to exceed $161,577.15 for the purchase of a real-time polymers chain reaction human DNA quantification system and thermocycler for DNA amplification.
Hugh Shannon, Medical Examiner's Office. The PCR allows the DNA lab to do amplifications, which creates replicas of DNA samples so they can run their tests. And this is a grant Area 5. Andrea, we are confirming it's Area 5 funding.
Thank you. Any questions for Hugh? Hearing none, I move to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Nani. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The item is approved. Thank you.
We're moving on to exemptions. Item number BC 2019-881, Department of Information Technology, recommending an alternative procurement process to seek out vendors to provide a bulk email marketing solution and will result in an award recommendation in the amount not to exceed $100,000 for the anticipated period, February 1st, 2020 through January 31st, 2022.
Janelle Green, Department of IT. The Department of IT is requesting to utilize the alternative procurement method to secure a bulk email provider. This is a collaborative effort between the web applications and the communications teams for a tool that will allow the county the ability to send out emails en masse to tens of thousands of constituents, municipalities, and media outlets. We did already post an RFP for services, but we only received 2 proposals that unfortunately did not meet our needs. With the alternative process, the team will review demos and test accounts from each of the vendors that will allow us to view their various functionalities and to figure out which of them will be compatible for our applications. To address the questions that came ahead of time, $100,000 is the amount that we're estimating the contract will be once we select a vendor. So it's a 2-year contract, so we're estimating it to be about $50,000 a year. And most of the vendors that we found don't really respond to RFPs, so they usually get sought out by companies. But we did go and search the Ohio State term, we did GSA, and we did look at other cooperative programs to see if they have these solutions already, and they did not have those already in those programs.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Hearing none, I move to approve. Do I have a second? Seconded by Mr. Nani. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the item is approved.
Thank
Next
you.
item. Thanks.
Item BC 2019-882, Department of Health and Human Services, Cuyahoga Job and Family Services, on behalf of the Department of Development. Recommending to amend board approval number BC 2019-148 dated February 25th, 2019, which amended various board approvals, which approved an alternative procurement process and exemption from aggregation on various requisitions and resulted in award recommendations to various providers in the total amount not to exceed $4,500,000 to reimburse employers for employee wage and training expenses in connection with the Learn and Earn program for the period January 1st, 2017 through December 31st, 2019. We are now extending the time period to December 31st, 2021.
Good afternoon, David Feinerman, Department of Development. This is the item that allows and authorizes SkillUp to reimburse employers for training-related expenses, including wages. We regularly appear before you in accordance with the biennial budget cycle, and so we're extending for another 2 years. As normal, the items for reimbursement to any individual employer will appear on the consent agenda.
Thank you. Are there any questions on this item?
Yes.
Councilman Miller.
The $4,500,000, is that the amount of money that's in this program for the next 2 years?
We have an approved budget of $3 million per year, so a total of $6 million, and that includes overhead costs, systems, tools.
Okay, fine.
Any further questions? Seeing none, I move to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Nani. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The item is approved. Thank you.
Next item.
BC 2019.
I have a question.
Are you projecting that we're going to spend all of the money in the program that's in the current for this year?
We have currently $1.4 million in encumbrances, and that is since inception. So the intent is to spend whatever is asked by employers who are performing the behaviors that we're asking of them, which is pay for training, increase workers' wages, and get their workers fully trained and credentialed.
I didn't hear a yes or a no on that.
We currently have not spent all of the money in our budget since we started.
And how much do you project to have left at the end of the year after whatever is currently in the works is done?
So as I indicated, we have $1.4 million in encumbrances. To date, we've spent roughly $100,000 in employer reimbursements. We have many employers that fail to invoice us, and we can't authorize a payment without an invoice, without Board of Control approval on the consent agenda, and without proof of them paying the expenses. These are performance-based incentives. So it's very hard to estimate how many of the employers, of the roughly 40 employers, will submit invoices for their roughly 550 trainees.
So you spend $100,000 and you have $1.4 million in encumbrances. Does that mean that you could have as much as $4.5 million left over?
So there's overhead. We have roughly $1 million in overhead expenses, and those are being spent. Likely there will be some leftover dollars unless we have an alternative use of the money. Again, this is a not to exceed amount, so we're not saying that we will spend all of the money in employer incentives. We're saying up to that amount through an exemption.
Okay.
Following up on that, how long do the employers have to submit their reimbursements? Is there some time frame for when they lose?
We require that they submit invoices to us within a certain amount of time of training completing. Now, training can be 6 weeks or it can be a year. And so the rolling calendar kind of continues. We also have asked our fiscal department to roll over the purchase orders that are created through the consent agenda so that we're providing opportunity for the employers to submit. One of the major hospitals submitted an invoice to us recently. It was a year past training being completed.
Okay, any further questions? Hearing none, we already approved it, sorry.
Thank you.
I was repeating myself. Okay.
Right, moving on to the next item, item number BC 2019-883, Department of Health and Human Services, Community Initiatives Division, Family and Children First Council, recommending an alternative procurement process which will result in award recommendations to various providers in the total amount not to exceed $407,897 for implementation of the Family Centered Services and Supports Wraparound Program, and is for the period July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2020.
Hi, Kathleen Johnson, Family and Children First Council. We are submitting this item for an alternative procurement process for the FCSS. It is a state-funded program for family wraparound program, and it's for $407,897. It's 75% federal dollars and 25% state dollars. To answer your question of why it was late, we did not get the allocation letter until November 1st. We always get it late every year. It's run on a state fiscal year. It has to be signed by different various department heads from the state, and we didn't get it until November 1st. It's always late every year. Another item that my department head put in is that they have to sign an MOU to release the money to the state Family Children First Council, because it is pulled from multiple state agencies, and that the state part is from the GRF fund. We are asking for the alternative procurement process because each family is allowed to choose the service and the vendor for their child in the home for the wraparound program. And we never know which vendor or service they're going to use. So that's why we're asking for the alternative procurement. And we are also asking for the vendor to not have to come before the Board of Control each time. We asked for this process last year, so it did work out well for our office, so we're asking for that process again. We did keep all the money in-house as we did last year, so our number of invoices actually tripled. We thought it was going to be like double, but it actually did triple. Again, we work with the Board of Developmental Disabilities, Children Family Services, Juvenile Court, and mental health, but not directly through the Adams Board, but through the actual vendors. So I processed probably at least 300 invoices last year or last fiscal year. So, but it did help speed up the vendors being paid, having to do it this way.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions? Councilwoman Baker.
So this contract started in July. Are there invoices waiting to be paid?
No, ma'am, we don't accept any applications until we get this actually approved, so that, but we do have some applications pending like, so we do have some from the Board of DD that they know, like some home HUDs are going to need to be made. So what they'll do, they'll either start the process and then we reimburse them, but we don't have any outstanding invoices at this time.
But the services have been provided?
They possibly could have been. I know there are at least 3 from the Board of Developmental Disabilities that are waiting to be reimbursed from us, but we haven't accepted any actual application. But they'll call or email like, are you going to get the money? Like, yes, but we just don't have the funding yet. Okay. So they'll go ahead and start the services if it's an emergency, especially for the home modifications.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other questions? Seeing none, I move to approve. Do I have a second? Seconded by Councilman Miller. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Okay, the item's approved. Next item.
Thank you.
On to the consent agenda, item numbers BC 2019-884 through 886.
Why don't we all take a quick minute to take a look through and let me know if you have any questions? Okay, any questions? No, seeing none, I move to approve. Do I have a second? Seconded by Councilman Miller. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? The item's approved. Okay, do we have any other business?
No other business at this time and no public comment.
Okay, at that, I recommend to close the meeting here. Do I have a second? Seconded by Mr. Nani. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, we're closed. Thank you.